I bet you thought Advance Wars was the least known Nintendo franchise today. Well, buckle up because I'm about to show you an even more obscure game. Coming to you from the 90s, this is Panel de Pon for the Super Nintendo, and I'm pretty sure I messed up the pronunciation. I never really learned how to pronounce it properly. But this is Panel de Pon, the so-called action puzzle game by Intelligent Systems, the same people who made Fire Emblem and Advance Wars. This is one of their lesser-known products. I am playing the 2007 translation of this. 2007 just feels like forever ago, doesn't it? Well, the 90s feel like even more forever ago, to be completely honest. So, Panel de Pon, I'm going to play the CPU battle mode on the highest difficulty. If you input a button code on this screen, you can play very hard mode, which you know it's very hard because the background turns that nice shade of red. So, I was about to say that this game has never been seen internationally in its original form. However, on the Switch Online system, where you have that little collection of SNES games that you can play whenever you want if you've got Switch Online, I don't have Switch Online, really, you can actually play this game untranslated as it originally was back in the day. So yeah, they didn't bother with a translation because, I don't know, effort. There's not that much dialogue in this game. It wouldn't have been a problem, I would think. But yeah, back in the 90s, they did not release this game as you see it now. They actually reskinned the game and added a bunch of characters from Yoshi's Island. And the reason they did that was because, just look at them, they're little girl characters. They didn't think any Westerner would dare play a game that looks like this, would they? So they reskinned it all with Yoshi characters and rebranded it Tetris Attack. To give it a connection to the Tetris franchise, to give it another, something that would boost sales, even though you can clearly see that this game is not about stacking blocks at all. It's actually a little bit more like Bejeweled, where you match up a bunch of differently colored blocks, and when you match up 3 of them in a row, they explode. And by causing a bunch of combos and chains, you can score more points, and since I'm playing versus mode, you can attack your opponent by making big chains. And I've gotten pretty good at this game, so I can make some really big chains and drop giant blocks on my opponents. This opening opponent is not much to speak about. She's really slow, so just stack a couple of garbage blocks on her, and she'll lose pretty quickly, because she doesn't move quickly enough. I move pretty fast, so I'm good. Although it has been forever since I played this, so I am a little bit rusty. But to be totally honest, this version of the game is not really that difficult, even on very hard mode. I think Tetris Attack was actually a little bit harder. They kind of buffed the CPU to make it a bit more challenging. And there's actually quite a bit of history to this game with all the different versions and revisions and such. So since, for the purposes of the CPU battle mode, there's not really any difference between each opponent. They just get better and better at the game as you go on. So, kind of like in the Puyo Puyo franchise, it's pretty easy to deal with the CPU if you can, just launch a bunch of combos at them and drop them as quickly as possible. Ah yes, and that sound effect just now, I believe that sound effect that plays whenever you get a 5 chain, it's actually an homage to Fire Emblem, because the same sound effect would play in Mystery of the Emblem if you pick up a treasure chest. Just listen for yourself and compare. Anyways, so there are actually a bunch of different versions of this game, and, for the international releases, they kept trying to reskin it into a different series to kind of, boost the sales, but I actually think that kind of harmed the sales of this game because, if you go into Pokemon Puzzle League, for example, and you're expecting some kind of Pokemon battle game, and you wind up with this in front of you, then that's going to look really weird, I would think. But yeah, Pokemon Puzzle League came out on the Nintendo 64 and was basically a better version of this game. What I didn't know at the time when I played Puzzle League, however, is that it was actually a reskin of the official sequel to this game. So, when the GameCube first came out, there was a Nintendo Puzzle Collection disc. It had 3 remakes of classic Nintendo puzzle games: Panel de Pon, Yoshi's Cookie, and Dr. Mario. Now, that collection never came out internationally, and I don't think it was Panel de Pon's fault. I think it was just because, that was really early in the GameCube's lifespan, and they actually wound up porting 2 of those games to the Nintendo 64. Dr. Mario became Dr. Mario 64, and the Panel de Pon sequel was reskinned into Pokemon Puzzle League. Now, while all of this was happening, there were also a couple of Game Boy games. There was Tetris Attack for the Game Boy, which I think was released under a different title in Japan. I'm not really sure. At some point, they got the version with all of the Yoshi characters for themselves, too, which, unfortunate for us in the West. We only get stuck with the reskin. We don't get to see the original version for whatever reason. And then there was a Game Boy Color Pokemon Puzzle League game, and I think Japan got that unaltered as well. Like, I think they were intending to use Panel de Pon's original cast for these games, but they just wound up never doing that. I guess they thought Japan would like to have Pokemon-themed Puzzle League as well. And the last known sequel to Panel de Pon is Planet Puzzle League for the Nintendo DS, which is not quite as good, features none of the characters from any of the original games, and has a bonus stage based on the original Panel de Pon. However, it is locked out in the international versions. You cannot play it without a cheat code. So yeah, it seems like they really don't want us to see the original characters or know what the game was like back then, which is really weird. I figured because it's the 90s, you know, they probably thought, oh, gamers are mostly male, they don't want to play girl characters. I mean, Puyo Puyo was also reskinned for a similar reason. It was reskinned into a Kirby game. At least on the Super Nintendo. If you were on the Sega Genesis, Puyo Puyo turned into a game about Dr. Robotnik for some reason. Like, it doesn't even have Sonic in it, so I have no idea what they're doing there. But anyways, they later reskinned it into a Pokemon game, which makes sense. They wanted to use the most popular franchise worldwide to sell something that's completely unrelated to Pokemon. I don't really get these decisions sometimes. I mean, in interviews, Hank Rogers, the guy who brought Tetris to the West, he stated that he, like, looking back, he should not have allowed Nintendo, basically, to tack on the Tetris name to this game. Not because this game is bad and it would tarnish Tetris. Oh, no. It's because, like, if you tack on the Tetris name to this game, people are going to think it's just another Tetris game, and it's not really going to be able to stand out on its own. And I think, you know, I agree with him on that point. Like, if you're gonna, like, try and get a new kind of game, especially a puzzle game, out internationally, you should at least let it stand on its own 2 feet and not try to, what's the word I'm looking for? Not let it kind of leech off another franchise. That's probably not the right word for it. But anyways, I had this as a kid, as Tetris Attack, of course, and I was really good at it. The thing is, like, one thing that Panel de Pon has kind of missed out on, in my opinion, is that the gameplay was never really refined into something really special. Like, this game is already pretty good, but they never really, like, polished the mechanics of the game into something amazing, because, like, I'm playing in the CPU battle mode at this moment, and it probably looks pretty action-packed, and it is pretty action-packed if you're, like, a beginner or something. But if you're as experienced as I am, then, there are way better players than me, obviously. I've just lost a lot of my skill by going rusty for so long. But if you are very experienced with this game, then one thing you might notice is that, you know, since in order to get rid of a garbage block, you have to clear regular blocks next to the garbage block. What you may have noticed is that you can very easily set up a chain with the new blocks that appear whenever you clear a garbage block, for example. Like, that makes it very easy to just make an endless chain out of a giant garbage block by setting up the next part of the chain as it's appearing from the garbage block. So if both players get really good at doing that, then matches can last a really long time, because a match isn't over until you hit the top of the screen for 2 seconds, and they give you that 2-second window because they don't want you to instantly die the instant you touch the top of the screen. So they give you a 2-second leeway, and unfortunately that 2-second leeway makes it very much possible for somebody with quick enough fingers to find the match that will allow them to clear the garbage and start up a new chain all over again. So yeah, if they had come up with some kind of a solution to that, like if you play in any online tournaments or something like that, which can happen on occasion, fan tournaments are a thing, what they will do is that they will set the difficulty level in the versus mode to the maximum, which means that if you touch the top of the screen, you basically instantly die. It was either that or very long matches, and unfortunately no official versions of Panel de Pon found a solution to that. But yeah. So getting into strategy a little more since I'm talking about it, you'll notice that there are 2 ways to send garbage to your opponent. One way is to make a combo, which is when you match more than 3 blocks at once, like I did just now with those triangles. This is very inefficient because it only sends over a tiny little garbage block. What you want to do is make chains, which will send over the giant blocks. Not only are these bigger, it takes a lot more effort to get rid of a giant garbage block than a bunch of little ones, because if you match next to a little block, then all of the connected blocks are going to get turned back into regular blocks. And the more blocks you have, the more potential you have for combos and chains. So it makes it very easy for the enemy to counterattack. This is the last of the 8 stages where you fight against the fairies. The plot of this is that monsters have invaded the world of Popples, I think it's called. And they've created an endless rain which will slowly flood the earth unless all of the fairies come together and fight back against the monsters. The fairy we're currently fighting now is definitely not a knockoff of Sailor Moon. I mean, moon motif, that dress. I had to make that joke. Anyways, I have no idea why all of the fairies are fighting one another. I think they got mind controlled or something. Like, in Tetris Attack, they make it clear that it's some kind of mind control, which is really weird. But, you know, that's normally not a thing you think of when you think Yoshi. But I guess Kamek could have done something like that. Anyways, after beating all 8 fairies and getting them on your side by beating them in a match, I guess. Defeat equals friendship, that's how it works in these games. Then you go on to fight 4 monsters, and then that's the end of the game. On easy mode, the game will end 2 stages early, and on normal mode, it will end 1 stage early. To see everything in the game, you have to be playing on hard mode, or very hard mode. Like, there's nothing extra that gets added on for very hard, except for a tougher challenge. So naturally, I had to play that to show off my incredible Tetris Attack skills. I just called it Tetris Attack, that's the wrong title. Anyways, what you saw just now was an example of what I was talking about. You can set up the next part of the chain as the garbage block is being cleared from the previous part of the chain, and it all counts as the same chain too. So yes, this should not last too long. This opponent turned out to be the toughest out of the first 8, obviously. Like, if you get lucky, like, if you plan on speedrunning this game, by the way, be prepared for some frustration, because like, speedrunning this game hinges on you getting lucky enough that the computer has a brain fart and they decide to instantly lose, like, within the first 30 seconds. So, running for a top time can be very difficult. Alright, so now we're moving on to the, whatever this mountain is called. The Mount of Wickedness, I think? Nice rock face there. Oh, it's called Death Mountain, just like in Zelda. What do you know? So from this point forwards, you can actually select whatever fairy you want to be your player character. And, now this game does something weird with this ending. Like, here on out, if you lose any of the 8 fairies, they are gone from the game permanently, which is interesting, I must say. And, but if Lip, the main character, loses at any time, she is not gone from the game permanently. But if she loses any fights, then you get the bad ending. I have no idea why that is. It's really weird. But, yeah, there's no real difference between any of the fairies. I just played as the Fairy of Fire for this stage because, you know, I like the idea of her turning this opponent into fried chicken when it's over. Interesting monster choices they've got here. A phoenix, a dragon, and then, well, somebody else. I won't spoil him for now. Not really much going on in the plot of this, but the characters are nice. They've got neat designs. And in the little portraits for the backgrounds here, they've got this really cool-looking anime artwork, but in the stage backgrounds for the single-player stages, they're more cutesy-looking. Interesting approach. It does make it more satisfying to win and then actually be able to see that portrait for yourself with a nice big win graphic on the top of the screen. Oh yeah, I haven't mentioned those exclamation mark blocks, by the way. What they do is they send over a special kind of garbage block. It's this gray block. And it actually, like, when you clear garbage in this game, all connected garbage blocks get cleared at the same time. But if there is a gray block in the way, that doesn't count as the same as the other garbage blocks. So it interrupts the clear and makes it very difficult to, like, clean through all of that garbage. And speaking of garbage blocks, you might have noticed that when I was playing as Lip earlier, the garbage blocks that she sends to her opponent might have looked a little bit familiar, because in Super Smash Bros., a recurring ability of Kirby is that he is able to turn into different stuff when he uses his stone ability. One thing he can turn into is the garbage block from Panel de Pon. So that's a nice little shout-out that they have. And speaking of Smash Brothers shout-outs, they also have Lipstick, which is apparently the magic wand that Lip uses. It causes a flower to grow on whoever gets hit with it. Now, I don't know if that's how it would work in this universe, but, you know, we haven't seen Lip in so long in any sort of game. She's not playable in Super Smash Brothers, which would have been really nice. Just a nice little shout-out to a mostly unknown franchise. Like, this is still... there are still fans of this on the internet. Obviously, I'm one of them, but... I don't know, there just hasn't been a sequel in so long. This is one of the games that I really want there to be a sequel of in the future, if they ever think about reviving some old franchises, but... You know, I have about as much hope for that as I do for official Advance Wars content. You know, maybe it'll fall to me to make an official, well, not an official, because it would be a fan game. Maybe it falls on me to make a fan game, because I'm already working on Advance Wars Alpha. Like, I might as well go for the full 9 yards and revive all the classics that have been forgotten. Probably at my own risk, because, you know how it is with Nintendo these days. I don't know. I'm just running my mouth at the moment. So, one fried chicken later, we are, moving on to the next stage, where we fight a dragon. Fairies and dragons. This game predicted Pokemon X and Y. With the introduction of the fairy type, and it's super effective against dragons, you know? It should actually make it very interesting if they ever came out with another Pokemon Puzzle Beat game. That would be interesting. Alright, so we got a generic dragon, and I'm going to select the Fairy of Jewels for this because I don't know, I think jewels and dragons go together for some reason. But he sure does look cutesy looking in that giant sprite of him. He doesn't look menacing at all. But then again, it doesn't really take much for me to think of a character as cute. Even if they are technically the villain or something. Like, in every anime, there's always this monster of the week kind of thing, right? Where there's a different new monster design every week, and then they're never seen ever again. I always feel bad for those kinds of characters, because they only ever get one chance in the limelight. This guy only had 25 seconds, unlike the Phoenix, which lasted for a good 3 minutes. Ah well, maybe in the next game. No, Phoenix and Dragon don't even appear in the official Panel de Pon sequel, so whatever. Later! Now, this next opponent is going to be interesting because he's, well, he takes up the entire background. Look at this, it's really cool. Say hello to... you sure are taking your time entering. Say hello to Thanatos. With a T and an H? Okay, it just sounds stupid with a T and an H. So, interestingly, this guy's character theme in battle, it got used for Bowser in the Yoshi's Island reskin. And then the actual final boss of Panel de Pon, her theme never got used anywhere in Tetris Attack. Well, almost nowhere. It was kind of used for a pre-battle theme, at least. Nice sound effect for this guy, though. Like, I like all of the unique graphics that they have for, like, the attack animations, and the garbage blocks are all unique, too. In Tetris Attack, they actually just gave all characters the same garbage blocks. A generic red block if you were sending it to your opponent, and a generic blue block if it got sent to you. Or is it the reverse? Yeah, I think it was the reverse, and I might be misremembering. Of course, I would never play Tetris Attack anymore these days, because I have this original version right here, so I'm going to play this from now on. Even though I just said a little while ago that Tetris Attack might be the tougher challenge, but whatever. Anyways, with only 2 stages to go here, you might be wondering at this point why I picked this game of all games to play on my channel. Well, I recorded the footage back in April and then sat on it for about a month. I have no idea why I did that. I probably should have made this video a lot sooner, but, you know, my heart sang to me. That's how it is with a lot of videos I make. My heart sings to me, and I make videos based on what that song is currently playing. Maybe it was singing to me the final boss theme, because the music in Panel de Pon, I actually like it quite a lot. A lot of obscure tunes here and there. One of them got remixed for the Smash Brothers games, but that's really all we got in terms of music for Smash. One song, and Kirby Stone ability, and an item. That's all Panel de Pon has in Smash. Kind of unfortunate. Like, you'd think they would give a lot more love to this series of games, because it has more games in it than Punch-Out! Like, that's not dissing Punch-Out! By any stretch of the imagination, but seriously, like, it just seems more prolific than Punch-Out! At least in Japan, I would say. Like, both Punch-Out! And this game have cameos in a little crossover title called Captain Rainbow, which featured a bunch of obscure Nintendo characters. Like, they even have some Advance Wars content in the form of random soldiers with no name or face. Yeah. These guys. Yeah, I'm starting to wonder, like, do these devs even actually enjoy some of the older, more obscure titles that they've made over the years? But I suppose that's presuming a whole lot. Like, maybe they don't actually make any Panel de Pon games anymore just because they don't sell. I mean, that probably goes for a lot of franchises. Like, if it stops selling, then there's no reason to make anymore, right? Like, you gotta make money. I suppose what I'm looking for in all of this rambling that I've been doing over the course of this video is that I would like for Nintendo to look at some of their older works and think about why they don't sell, and maybe try to work towards making it so where they do sell. I mean, like, they outsourced this to Bandai Namco, I think, but they got a new Pokemon Snap game made, and that's a very niche game, and a very big franchise, of course, so there's that advantage, but they managed to do that. They managed to make a game about taking pictures of Pokemon again, and have it be really, really good. I think if they made a Panel de Pon game in 2022 or whatever, it would turn out pretty nice, I think. Anyways, that was the final boss, by the way. Let it be known that Lip probably has the most epic final boss in history because she just took down a 200-foot goddess. Oh yes, we'll meet again in approximately 5 seconds because it's time for a plot twist. I mean, like, it's not as if the plot of Panel de Pon is particularly interesting because, you know, it's pretty basic with one simple little twist at the end. Also, this quote is different depending on who you use to fight the final boss with. So I guess that's a little bit of replay value, even though it's just one tiny little quote. Oh, hey, she's back! And it's time for a very short transformation sequence, because it turns out that the goddess Cordelia is actually Lip's mother. Wow, what a plot twist. I bet you didn't even know who any of these characters even are. So yes, as a reward for passing a test, because, like, it turns out that the entire thing was a test. Go figure. Like, that's gotta be one of the top 10 anime cliches of all time, in my opinion. Like, one of the ones that makes you sigh and groan. Oh, it was just a test all along, and, anyways, yeah, that was Panel de Pon for the Super Nintendo. Not really a long game at all. That only took 23 minutes to beat. But yeah, I guess I don't really have a lot more to say about Panel de Pon other than it is very solid fun. It's a great idea for a puzzle game, taking Bejeweled-type gameplay and turning it into an action game with really neat mechanics that could use a little bit more development in further sequels, but they would have to actually make those sequels and come up with an idea for how to further refine the gameplay. And there's still plenty of other modes besides computer battle mode. There's obviously an endless mode, because all puzzle games have to have an endless mode. There's a timed score attack, in case you want to see how many points you can get in 2 minutes. There's also a marathon mode, where you have to clear as many blocks as possible in as short a time as possible without dying. And that mode actually has something weird. It has a boss battle mode, where you have to take down a life gauge with combos and chains and stuff. That was a pretty weird addition, but an interesting twist on the gameplay. One that they probably could have added to some of the single-player content later on, but whatever. There's also a puzzle mode where you have to clear like different screens in certain numbers of moves by moving around blocks and clearing all of the blocks on the screen in a certain number of moves. That mode was actually my favorite growing up. I like that mode more than the other ones because I could actually think about what I was doing. And if you beat all 60 puzzles, there's actually an extra set of 60 puzzles after that you access with a button code, I think. So yeah, there's plenty of content, and this game doesn't even have any save files, which means you have to take pictures of your high scores if you want to send them to people online or anything. And in Pokemon Puzzle League, they increased the difficulty of the AI. Well, actually, they increased the maximum difficulty. The difficulties actually go all the way up to super hard in case you want to have fun fighting an AI that just won't give up. Like, you have to get really lucky if you want to drop them in less than a minute. It can take quite a while if you don't get lucky with them. And there are even more puzzles in Pokemon Puzzle League. There's actually a 3D variant of the gameplay where the blocks are all arranged in a cylinder. That was a lot of fun to fool around with, even though it was probably, like, unless you were playing in score attack mode, it was probably not good for versus mode, because it would take even longer to kill your opponent. Anyways, the credits are rolling. Lip is walking across a rainbow. Yoshi would be here if it were Tetris Attack. And, yeah, that's the end of the game. And the credits are going to roll. And we're going to see a bunch of names from the old days that will probably evoke a lot of nostalgia. Of course, not many people in Intelligent Systems are, like, super well-known people. Like, the composer for this game is not the composer from Fire Emblem, so you probably would not recognize her name at all. Shame too, because I think the game's soundtrack, as I've said, is really, really good. This track in particular is nice and relaxing, and nice to listen to after a hard-fought battle, getting through very hard with no continues. I'm very experienced with the game, but I know new people would find this very challenging to deal with. Just because so much of Panel de Pon relies upon you having very quick reflexes. Like, you might have noticed that, like, throughout the game, I was setting up the next part of the chain while the chain was still happening. This isn't like Puyo Puyo, where you just set up the chain and then watch it all unfold. You can actually still make moves while the chain is going. And one technique I haven't even mentioned yet is that, if you, like, let's say you have a block that's about to fall onto a couple of other blocks to form a chain. Like, you can actually form multiple ongoing chains at the same time, and as long as the blocks keep matching up on different frames, it'll count as higher and higher chains for more and more points. Unfortunately, this game actually caps, like, after the 13th link in a chain, you just stop getting any additional points, so there is a maximum to how big your chains can be, which is really weird. That was fixed in Pokemon Puzzle League, obviously. Like, I just have so many good memories of this game. And here come the credits for the translation. Gosh, I haven't interacted with a Panel de Pon fandom in a very long time. Like, I remember trying to make one stupid little Panel de Pon comic from way back in the day. It's probably not even on the internet anymore. Good for me, too, because it was so awful. I wonder if those Japanese letters actually match up with the English. Yeah, they probably just overwrote part of the credits and left the Japanese in. GameFAQs and ROMHacking.net. Now, there's some nostalgia for you. I have not been on those forums in forever. Like, I don't think anybody would ever want to go on the GameFAQs forums at this point, just because, like, somehow they're not that pleasant a place to be on anymore. I don't know how that happened. But that's just my opinion on the whole thing. Intelligent Systems. Like, have they even... Like, this is weird to say, but other than, like... Oh, and here's Gunpei Yokoi, by the way. Rest in peace, Yokoi. We still love you and your work. All these years later, and his importance to the video game industry still can't be understated. But yeah, what has Intelligent Systems actually been doing lately? Because you don't hear a lot from them these days. Unless it's Fire Emblem, of course, but even Three Houses was worked on by Koei Tecmo, so I have no really I don't have any idea what they're doing these days. Anyways, that's the end. And this end screen has a short little music box remix of Lip's theme. But other than that, that's Panel de Pon, and I will see you for whatever video I decide to commentate over next. Later, everybody.